I have been playing Diablo 4 since the beta, and I have participated in every season so far. So this article that I've read is kinda interesting because it delves into Season 14 changes. Basically, it's all about how Mythic changes are controversial, but it's for the game's long-term health. And here's what I can say about this, but many other aspects of Season 14. When you think about it, this season might end up as one of the most important seasons in the game's history. And the reason isn't because it's giving us a new boss or some flashy seasonal mechanics, but because Blizzard is fundamentally changing the way the endgame works. But if you ask me, based on what I have read, this might be one of the most controversial seasons Diablo 4 has seen since the launch. Now, it remains to be seen what I will feel when I play the game, but let's just say my gut feeling is telling me something else. You see, one of Blizzard's biggest goals with Season 14 is addressing the fact that a handful of mythic items have become completely dominant. For example, items like Heir or Perdition or Grandfather are so powerful that once you get them, that slot is basically sold forever. And to be honest, speaking from my personal experience, once I have identified that certain slot, for example in this case Helm, is going to be Heir or Perdition, I actually don't care what I'm putting there, because for me that item is just a placeholder until I get that particular mythic. And you can see this on every guide on Maxroll, every Icy Vein build, and eventually every player ends up chasing the same few items. So Blizzard isn't wrong when they say that's bad for long-term build diversity. Again, every barbarian, every sorc, every rogue ends up using the exact same gear, and eventually the endgame becomes sold. So what's Blizzard doing? Well, their solution is to allow more than 100 unique items to become Mythic-quality, giving you many more options. Essentially, when you think about it on paper, that's a great idea. However, here's where the things start getting messy. Blizzard seems to believe that adding more randomness equals more build diversity. And I think that's where they are making a mistake. When I think about these things, randomness and depth are not the same thing. People don't hate fixed affixes because they are boring. They hate them when there are only a handful of viable items. So the answer should be crafting meaningful choices, not turning every piece of endgame gear into another slot machine. I mean, nothing kills excitement faster than finally seeing one of the rarest items in the game drop, only to realize it's rolled terrible affixes. And maybe some of you think this is exciting, but for me, it sounds like it's super disappointing. Essentially, the rarest items in Diablo should make you jump out of your chair, but instead, most of the time, as far as I'm concerned, I say something along the lines of, well, this one is useless, and I just scrap it immediately. And I wouldn't say that I'm angry about this or furious. I would just say that I'm tired. That's probably the best way how I would describe it. Also, I'm not necessarily upset because change is happening. The biggest problem here is that it feels like Diablo's 4 core systems are constantly changing. For example, this new Mythic system, it basically adds layer after layer of RNG, and then what you get is Mythic items no longer feel special. Also, Blizzard has spent years improving itemization since launch, only to reintroduce so many of the same frustrations that I have complained about before. And that to me screams something along the lines of, didn't we already learn this lesson? I don't know, man, it seems like we're making 2 steps backwards and 1 step forward. That's kinda the theme song for the whole freaking game. Also, one other point that I would like to make. Fixed affix mythics are actually good because once you finally obtain one, that gear slot was finished. And that was emphasized especially with the last season because fixed affixed uniques, well, they are no longer fixed affixed. And I was busting my ass so hard in order to assemble proper gear for my build. And let me tell you, that really felt annoying, but most of the time tiring. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like chasing items and affixes, but the way this is working in Diablo 4 at the moment, you don't really get a lot of satisfaction, to be honest. Which brings me to something Blizzard's design director said during an interview that I think is incredibly revealing. When discussing war plans and why Blizzard hasn't made progression account-wide, he explained that doing so would reduce some of the playtime associated with the system. And honestly, this particular quote is so insane to me. And the reason why is so simple. It hints at a design philosophy that prioritizes engagement metrics over player enjoyment. Instead of asking questions like, how do we make this system more fun? They are asking questions, how do we keep players grinding longer? And let me tell you folks, those are not the same question. Oh my god, it's like I don't really understand these people. Last season, I was so demotivated to play more characters just because of this war plan bullshit. And because of that, because they're not making it account-wide, I'm not gonna make more than one character because I'm not fucking stupid. Yes, there are many characters that I would like to explore and play, but at the end of the day, because the classes and builds aren't balanced properly, why would I ever play something that's subpar? Instead, I'm just gonna play the most powerful build, pick one of the classes that has it, and be done with it. Or even better, I might actually skip this season because this is just fucking insane. Adding another 50 hours of farming doesn't necessarily make progression or the game more meaningful. It just makes it more exhausting. Look, I think Blizzard correctly identified the problem. Too many mandatory mythics, too little build diversity, and basically endgame that's becoming increasingly solved. But I'm worried they're solving these problems by adding more randomness and extending the grind instead of creating more meaningful choices. I would argue the goal in this game isn't to spend forever chasing one impossible item. It's pretty much reaching a satisfying endpoint and then trying something new. However, again, because war plans are not account-bound, that something new, as far as I'm concerned, will never be a reality. I definitely do not want to make an alt, 100%. And because of that, build diversity is going to suffer, experimentation is never going to be a thing, and discovering new combinations is only going to happen if you are a max role creator or a streamer that is basically doing that as a full-time job. So yeah, Season 14 may ultimately determine whether Diablo 4's future is built around player freedom and creativity, or around keeping players on a treadmill just a little bit longer. And I guess I am going to find that out for real when the next season launches. Who knows? I might actually be completely wrong on this one, but sadly, more often than not, I am kinda right when it comes to these things. So yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting season. And if the game, or rather the season, turns out to be shitty, you bet I'm going to talk about it because I'm also going to make a review about that particular season. And that's basically my take on this news. Thanks very much for watching, and as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And that's it from me, until the next one.